Welcome back to our channel. Hope you are fine. From where? You are watching our video. Tell us in the comments section. Let's begin with another day of aviation stories. This flight was supposed to be ordinary, until one request exposed something far deeper than fear. And one voice changed everything. The cabin door closed with a soft mechanical finality, the kind that always made the air feel heavier than it was moments before. Overhead bins were shut one by one. Seatbelts clicked into place. The flight attendants moved with trained calm, their expressions neutral, their voices low and professional as they completed the last checks before departure. Outside the narrow windows, the late afternoon light washed the runway in pale gold. In the middle section of the aircraft, a young black girl sat by the window, her posture straight, her hands folded loosely in her lap. She looked no older than 17. Her hair was neatly tied back, not styled for attention but for practicality. She wore simple clothes, clean and modest, nothing that suggested urgency or privilege. A small backpack rested at her feet, zipped and undisturbed, as if it contained something valuable that did not need to be shown. She had boarded early, taken her assigned seat without hesitation, and settled into silence. She did not scan the cabin or check her phone obsessively like many others. She simply looked forward, breathing evenly, as if she were preparing for something more important than a routine flight. 2 rows away, a man shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He was well-dressed, confident in the way people often are when they believe the world is arranged to accommodate them. He glanced sideways, then forward, then sideways again. His discomfort was not subtle. It spread into his posture, his clenched jaw, the way his foot tapped against the floor. Moments later, a flight attendant paused beside him. What began as a quiet exchange quickly changed the atmosphere of the cabin. Heads turned, not dramatically but cautiously, as if everyone sensed that something fragile had just been disturbed. The flight attendant's expression tightened, professional composure holding against something unseen. She nodded once, slowly, and glanced down the aisle toward the girl by the window. The man leaned back, arms crossed, his expectation clear. He had made a request, one he believed would be honored. The request itself did not echo loudly, but its weight did. It pressed into the silence like a sudden change in cabin pressure. Passengers looked at their laps, at the seatback screens, at anything except each other. A mother pulled her child slightly closer. An elderly man stared straight ahead, unmoving. Someone adjusted their headphones without turning them on. The girl did not move. She had noticed the shift, of course. She felt it in the air before she saw it in the reflections on the window. She felt the quiet gather, thick and watchful, but she stayed exactly where she was. Her hands still folded, her breathing steady. The flight attendant approached her row and stopped. For a moment, she said nothing. Training battled uncertainty behind her eyes. This was not a situation covered cleanly in manuals. The girl looked up calmly without surprise. Her face showed no fear, no anger, no confusion, only awareness. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Some passengers expected resistance. Others expected tears. A few expected raised voices, security involvement, escalation. No one expected stillness. The girl listened. The man watched from his seat, certain of the outcome. He had spoken with confidence, the kind born from years of being accommodated without question. He believed the system would bend, as it always had. The flight attendant hesitated. Time stretched thin, uncomfortable. The engines had not yet powered up. The door remained sealed. Everything waited. The girl remained silent. That silence unsettled people more than any argument could have. It removed the illusion that this was a misunderstanding or a simple inconvenience. It exposed the request for what it was, a demand rooted in something older, uglier, and rarely confronted so directly in public spaces like this. A man across the aisle shifted, as if he might say something, then stopped himself. A woman a few rows back frowned, her lips parting before she looked away. No one intervened, not yet. The girl slowly reached into her backpack and adjusted something inside. Not searching, not fumbling, just checking. The movement was deliberate, practiced, the kind of motion someone makes when they are used to responsibility. The flight attendant noticed. So did a member of the cabin crew standing farther back, observing quietly. A look passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, or curiosity. The man exhaled loudly, impatience sharp and performative. He glanced around as if expecting agreement, validation, support. He found none. Only lowered eyes and rigid spines. The girl finally lifted her head fully. Her gaze moved across the cabin, not seeking sympathy, not demanding attention, simply acknowledging the space, the people, the reality of where she was. When she spoke, it was not rushed. It was not loud. But it was enough. The tone carried authority that did not need to be announced. It carried experience that did not match her age. It carried a calm certainty that immediately changed the energy in the aircraft. The flight attendant straightened instinctively. Several passengers looked up at once. Even the man's posture shifted, just slightly, as if something in her voice had bypassed his expectations and reached somewhere deeper, somewhere unprepared. The engines remained silent. The plane did not move, but something else had. The cabin, moments ago divided by discomfort and avoidance, was now united by attention. Whatever the girl had just revealed was not what anyone expected. And this was only the beginning. The effect of her words did not fade after she finished speaking. It lingered, settling into the cabin, like a change in altitude that everyone felt but no one could explain. The flight attendant did not respond immediately. She did not need to. Her posture had already shifted. Shoulders squared, stance respectful, as if the situation had quietly reversed roles. The girl returned her gaze to the window, not dismissive, not withdrawn, simply finished. She had said what needed to be said. Whatever judgment existed in the cabin now belonged to everyone else. A few rows away, the man sat motionless. His confidence, once expansive, had folded inward. He looked forward now, not scanning for allies, not searching for validation. His arms uncrossed slowly, hands resting on his knees. For the first time since boarding, he appeared unsure of where he stood. Passengers began to notice details they had overlooked before. The way the girl sat was not casual. Her back was straight but not stiff. It was the posture of someone trained to remain alert for long periods. Her breathing was controlled, measured. Her eyes, reflected faintly in the window, tracked movement in the cabin without obvious motion. A woman across the aisle narrowed her eyes slightly, studying the small emblem stitched near the zipper of the backpack at the girl's feet. It was subtle, nearly invisible unless one knew what to look for. A symbol associated with safety training, not decorative, not commercial. Further back, a man who traveled frequently felt a familiar sensation he could not place. He had seen that calm before. In emergency rooms, in cockpits, in people who knew exactly what to do when others froze. The flight attendant stepped away, walking toward the front of the aircraft. Her pace was brisk but controlled. She stopped briefly near the galley, speaking quietly to another crew member. Heads turned again, curiosity replacing discomfort. The engines were still off. The delay, once inconvenient, now felt intentional. The girl remained seated, hands folded again, eyes forward. She did not look at the man who had demanded her removal. She did not look at anyone seeking reaction. She behaved as if the situation were already resolved. That unsettled people more than anything else. Most confrontations relied on escalation or retreat. This one had done neither. It had simply shifted power without force. The cabin crew returned, their expressions different now. Not defensive, not apologetic, focused. One of them glanced at the girl with unmistakable recognition before looking away, as if acknowledging a presence that did not need explanation. The man noticed this too. His throat tightened. He adjusted his collar, suddenly aware of the eyes he had avoided earlier. The weight of the cabin's attention pressed down on him, not aggressively but firmly. No one glared. No one whispered. The judgment came from the absence of reaction, from the quiet recalibration happening around him. People returned to their seats more fully now, sitting upright, attentive. A child stopped fidgeting. A woman closed her book without marking the page. Something important was unfolding and everyone sensed it. The girl's backpack shifted slightly as the aircraft's systems hummed to life. Soft vibrations passed through the floor. The familiar signs of imminent departure returned. But the mood had changed completely. In the cockpit, information traveled quickly. The crew did not announce anything. They did not need to. The plane remained at the gate, but the reason was no longer procedural. A man near the aisle replayed the moment in his mind. The tone of the girl's voice, the clarity, the lack of fear. He realized something uncomfortable. Whatever she had revealed had not been meant to defend herself. It had been stated as fact. as context, as truth that stood regardless of anyone's opinion. That distinction mattered. The flight attendant stopped once more beside the girl's row, this time without hesitation. Her presence carried reassurance rather than authority. She nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than instruction, then continued forward. The girl did not respond. She did not need to. The man shifted again, heat creeping up his neck. He felt exposed in a way he had never experienced before. His request, once framed as preference, now sat bare and indefensible in the open air of the cabin. He thought of saying something, an apology, an explanation, anything that might restore balance. But no words formed. None felt sufficient. None felt safe. The silence had changed him too. Outside, a service vehicle rolled past the window, its reflection sliding across the girl's face. She blinked once, slowly, and adjusted her shoulders as if preparing mentally. Not for confrontation, for responsibility. A crew member paused at the front, glancing back toward her again, longer this time. The look was not curious now. It was respectful, trusting. Passengers noticed that too. Whispers did not start. Questions did not surface. The cabin seemed to understand, collectively, that whatever had been revealed was not for casual consumption. It carried weight. It carried consequence. The girl's age no longer seemed relevant. The man's confidence no longer seemed earned. When the engines finally began to power up, the low rumble felt grounding rather than routine. The aircraft was moving toward something, not just away from the gate. As the plane pushed back, the man stared straight ahead, jaw set, his earlier certainty replaced by something close to regret. He avoided looking toward the window seat. He avoided thinking about the assumptions he had made so easily. The girl looked forward, expression unchanged. Whatever role she carried, whatever knowledge or training she possessed, it had already altered the course of the flight. Not through force, not through argument. Through presence alone, the cabin, once divided by discomfort and avoidance, now shared a quiet understanding. This flight would not be ordinary, and what awaited them in the air would demand exactly the kind of calm that now sat silently by the window. The first sign that something was wrong did not come with alarms or sudden movement. It arrived quietly, almost politely, as a subtle change in the vibration beneath the floor. The steady hum of the engines wavered, just enough for those accustomed to flying to feel it rather than hear it. Most passengers did not notice. A few did and dismissed it as turbulence settling in. The seatbelt sign remained illuminated. The cabin lights stayed constant. Everything looked normal. Yet the girl by the window felt the shift immediately. Her breathing adjusted without conscious effort. Her shoulders squared slightly, not visibly but with intent. She focused on the rhythm of the aircraft, listening beyond sound, sensing balance and pressure the way others sensed temperature. This was not fear. It was recognition. 2 rows back, a man felt a sudden tightening in his chest, the kind that came without warning and without reason. He pressed a hand against his sternum, willing it away. It did not pass. His breathing became shallow. Sweat formed along his hairline. A flight attendant noticed him instinctively. She paused mid-aisle, eyes trained, her professional awareness catching details before panic could spread. She approached calmly, kneeling slightly to meet his eye level. The man tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. Around them, heads began to turn. The girl had already stood up. She did not rush. She did not draw attention to herself. She rose smoothly, as if this moment had been anticipated rather than improvised. A few passengers noticed and froze, unsure whether to object or ignore. The flight attendant glanced up, surprise flashing briefly across her face before something else replaced it. Trust. The girl moved into the aisle and stopped at a respectful distance. She assessed the man with a single glance, taking in posture, color, breathing, responsiveness. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes sharpened with focus. The flight attendant did not question her presence. She shifted aside instinctively, allowing space. The man's breathing worsened. His hand trembled. Panic threatened to take hold, the kind that escalated symptoms faster than the cause itself. The girl lowered herself slightly, grounding her presence without crowding him. Her movements were precise, practiced. She gestured for the flight attendant to retrieve specific equipment, not vaguely but with clarity that left no room for confusion. The attendant moved immediately. Passengers watched, silent now for a different reason. Fear had entered the cabin, but it was being met with control rather than chaos. The engines adjusted again. This time, more people felt it. A low chime sounded from the cockpit, brief and controlled. No announcement followed. The plane continued forward through the sky, steady on the surface, tense beneath it. The girl guided the man's breathing without touching him, demonstrating pace through her own calm inhale and exhale. Slowly, his chest began to follow her rhythm. His eyes fixed on her, clinging to the stability she projected. A medical kit arrived. The girl opened it efficiently, her hands moving with familiarity. She checked labels, contents, readiness. She did not hesitate. She did not ask permission. Somewhere in the cabin, someone whispered her age again, as if it mattered. Others had already stopped thinking of her as young. The man's color began to improve. His breathing steadied enough for him to speak in fragments. The girl listened, filtering information quickly, discarding what was irrelevant, focusing on what mattered. She nodded once decisively. The flight attendant relayed information to the cockpit. Her voice was steady, confident, shaped by the assurance standing beside her. Up front, the pilots listened carefully. At the same time, another issue emerged. A sensor alert flickered briefly on a display, then disappeared. Not enough to trigger alarms, enough to raise questions. The captain felt the weight of accumulated variables. Small on their own, significant together. He requested status updates calmly. The answer he received included the presence of someone trained, someone already managing one situation with composure that inspired confidence. Decisions were made. The aircraft altered course slightly, so subtly most passengers did not notice. The cabin crew prepared quietly, their movements efficient, their communication minimal and precise. The girl finished stabilizing the man and guided him gently back against his seat. She secured him safely, ensuring his comfort and safety. Only then did she step back, allowing the flight attendant to resume primary care. She did not seek acknowledgement. She did not linger. As she returned to her seat, eyes followed her now with something close to reverence. Fear had not vanished from the cabin, but it had been contained, directed, managed. The man who had demanded her removal watched her pass. His face had lost all color. The realization settled heavily on him, undeniable now. The person he had wanted, erased from his proximity, had just prevented a far greater disruption, possibly something worse. He could not look away. The girl sat down and fastened her seatbelt. Her hands folded once more in her lap as they had before. To anyone unaware, she looked like a quiet passenger again. To those who had watched, she was something else entirely. The plane encountered light turbulence. This time, no one panicked. They had seen what calm could do. In the cockpit, the captain considered options, informed by clear-headed reports rather than alarm. Confidence replaced uncertainty. The flight would continue safely, with adjustments made early rather than late. The cabin lights dimmed slightly. The seatbelt sign remained on. Passengers settled back, hearts still racing, but steadied by what they had witnessed. Conversations did not start. Phones remained untouched. Everyone seemed to understand that this moment deserved respect, not commentary. The girl gazed out the window again, watching clouds drift past, her reflection faint against the glass. Her expression did not change. Responsibility, once assumed, had been carried and set down without ceremony. The crisis had passed, but its impact remained. For the first time since boarding, the cabin felt united not by tension but by trust, and somewhere deep within the aircraft, far beyond what could be seen, the next test was already forming, waiting for the one person aboard, who seemed ready long before anyone else knew they would need her. The announcement came softly, measured and calm, the way experienced. Pilots spoke when they did not. Want fear to travel faster than facts? The captain informed the cabin of a minor technical irregularity, nothing alarming, but enough to require a controlled diversion. The words were chosen carefully, wrapped in reassurance, steady as hands on a familiar yoke. No one panicked. That alone surprised the crew. The aircraft began its gentle descent toward an alternate runway, the clouds thinning as the ground slowly revealed itself below. The cabin lights brightened slightly. Flight attendants moved through the aisle, checking seatbelts, posture, readiness. Their faces showed focus, not concern. The girl by the window noticed the change in angle immediately. She adjusted her breathing again, grounding herself. listening to the aircraft's response as it cut through denser air. She was not guessing. She was confirming. 2 rows back, the man she had helped earlier was stable now. Oxygen rested lightly against his face. His eyes followed the movement of the ceiling panels as the plane descended. But his fear had softened. He was alive, aware, grateful in a way that words could not yet reach. The man who had demanded her seat felt every second of the descent like a personal reckoning. He had replayed the moment again and again in his mind. The assumption, the entitlement, the ease with which he had reduced a human being to a discomfort he believed the world should correct for him. Each replay ended the same way now, with her standing calmly in the aisle, steady hands saving a stranger without hesitation. Shame did not arrive loudly. It came quietly, settling deep. As the aircraft aligned with the runway, the tension in the cabin rose again. But this time it was different. It was not fear of the unknown. It was awareness of consequence. Everyone sat upright. Everyone listened. Everyone trusted the process. The landing was firm but controlled. The tires met the runway with precision. The deceleration was smooth. No sudden jolts, no screams, just the powerful grounding reality of the ground beneath them again. When the plane came to a complete stop, a collective exhale moved through the cabin like a wave. Applause did not erupt. Instead, there was something quieter, heavier, more meaningful. Relief. The captain's voice returned, confirming that the aircraft was safe, that procedures had worked exactly as intended, and that medical assistance would meet them shortly. He paused just briefly before adding something unscripted. He acknowledged the presence of a trained passenger whose early awareness and decisive action had contributed significantly to a safe outcome. Heads turned as one, not to the cockpit, to the window seat. The girl did not look up immediately. She closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the responsibility she had carried to finally leave her shoulders. When she opened them again, she looked forward, not seeking recognition. But it came anyway. The flight attendant approached her row once more, this time with unmistakable respect. She leaned in slightly and spoke quietly, her words not meant for the cabin. The girl nodded. That was when the truth spread, gently but unmistakably. She was not just a passenger. She was a certified emergency response trainee, raised in environments where preparation was survival, where calm was taught before fear ever had a chance to take root. She had grown up around aviation, safety drills, medical response. Her youth had never meant inexperience, only that she had learned early. The backpack at her feet had never been ordinary. The emblem had not been decoration. The silence from earlier suddenly made sense. The man who had demanded her removal stood slowly, his movements unsure. For a moment, it seemed like he might speak. The cabin watched, not with hostility, but with expectation. He did not offer excuses. He did not justify himself. He simply lowered his head just enough and spoke words meant only for her. An apology does not always need witnesses to be real. She looked at him then, not with anger, not with triumph, with calm acknowledgement. A quiet acceptance that carried more power than condemnation ever could. That moment changed him. It changed others too. Passengers disembarked slowly, many pausing briefly as they passed her seat. Some nodded. Some whispered thanks. Some simply placed a hand over their heart before moving on. No one tried to take a photo. No one tried to turn her into a spectacle. They understood instinctively that this story did not belong to the internet first. It belonged to humanity. When the cabin finally emptied, she stood, lifting her backpack with the same care she always had. She walked down the aisle not as a hero, not as a victim, but as what she had been all along. Someone capable. Outside, emergency crews waited, lights flashing against the fading sky. The world continued, loud and chaotic as ever. But inside that plane, something had shifted. A seat had become a line. A demand had become a lesson. And silence had revealed the truth that mattered most. Hope does not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply stays seated until it is needed.